Now, this video is really a class activity, so you could try these for yourselves first, and then you could watch me work the solutions and match your answers to check if you got out the same thing, to see where you went right or where you went wrong. Okay, so let's just run through them quickly. Remember, it's always good to try first. All right, guys? Good. Now, I have negative 1/3 of y is greater than or equal to 5. Now, negative 1/3 can also, well, it's multiplying y, so I can divide through by negative 1/3. Okay, so I can say negative 1/3 of y is greater than or equal to 5, but I can divide through, since negative 1/3 is multiplying y, I can divide through by negative 1/3 to get rid of it. And what I do to this side, I must do to the next side. So I can also divide through by negative 1/3, so that a negative and a negative will give me a positive y. So this negative 1/3 will cancel out with this negative 1/3, obviously. So we would be left with positive y. But remember, I have now divided through by a negative number, so I must now change my sign. So I'm now going to change my inequality sign to less than or equal to. Now look at this carefully. For some persons this may look a bit wacky. Okay, so let's just rewrite this in another way. What this is saying, I had a 5 over here initially, so I'm going to write it another way. This is 5. Now remember that this line, the vinculum, it means to divide, so I can change that to my division sign. So what this is saying is 5 divided by negative 1/3. Now, if you check our lessons on fractions, you should remember that when working with fractions or when dividing fractions, it is same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So what I have here would be y is less than or equal to 5. My division sign now, I'm going to change that to multiplication, and I'm going to flip this now. So I would have negative 3 over 1. So I know that 5 times negative 3 will give me a negative 15. So y is less than or equal to negative 15. Okay, so any value that y takes that is less than or equal to negative 15 would make this solution that we have here true. Okay guys, good. Now let's move on quickly to another exercise. Here we have 9 minus 6n is greater than 17 minus 5n. Okay, so quickly, now this is pretty easy and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Since my 6n is negative, a little trick here, if I don't want to switch the sign, a little trick here is to bring this number. If I should bring this negative 6n over this side, it would become positive. Okay, and then I could subtract 5n from it. Okay, so that would avoid me from have to be switching this sign. Now let's work it that way. Just to show you another method, I am saying let me move my negative 6n. So I'm saying 9 minus 6n, and to move 6n I would have to add 6n is greater than 17 plus 6n, and I'm putting back my negative 5n. Now I know that a positive 6n will cancel out with a negative 6n, so here I'm left with 9 is greater than, rather, my bad, is greater than 17 plus 6n minus 5n will leave us with n, or some persons may say 1n. Okay, now I must move my 17 to this side, so I'm going to subtract 17 from both sides since it's a positive 17. Good, so I'm going to say 9 minus 17 is greater than 17 minus 17 plus n. Okay, so I know that this 17 will cancel out with that 17. So really what I'm left with is 9 from 17 will leave me with a negative 8 is greater than, and I would only have n left here. Now, the reason why I didn't, if you notice my sign, it's the same as, it's in the same direction as I have started. Now, the reason why I didn't switch the sign is because I had took my negative 6n to this side, so it became positive, and since I had a positive 6n and the 5n was less, then I could subtract it without switching it. However, if I had took my negative 5n to this side instead, then I would have to switch around the sign. Okay, and you can always try it for yourselves that way to see if you would get back the same answer. Good. Now, in our third example, I have positive 1 over 4 minus 2/5 of b, and that should be greater than 0. Now, since I have fractions working with, and let me change my color. Since I have fractions working with, a quick way to get rid of the fraction is to find the LCD. So I'm finding my LCD to get rid of my fraction, and the number that 5 and 4 can go into without leaving a remainder right off the bat would be 20. Okay, so 4 into 20 goes 5 times, and 5 times 1 would give me 5. I'm putting my denominator in my LCD, and then I'm multiplying that by my numerator. So I have a negative here now. So I'm saying 5 into 20 goes 4 times, and 4 times negative 2 will give me a negative, my sign is already there, negative 8b. And that must be greater than 1 into 20 goes 20 times, and 20 times 0 is 0. Okay, good. Now, what I'm doing here now, and again, in this case, we could work it similarly to this, but since I've worked it that way already, I'm just going to bring my 5 over. I'm not going to move my 8b, because if you look at it carefully, if I should move this negative 8b to this side, then it would become positive over on this side, so I wouldn't have to switch the sign again. Okay, however, if I chose now to move my positive 5 over here, look what I'll get. Since 5 is positive, I'm going to have to subtract 5 from both sides. 5 minus 5 minus 8b is greater than 0, and since I subtracted 5 from this side, I must also subtract 5 from that side. So what I'll have here left is this 5 will cancel that 5. Okay, let me just erase this a bit. Yes, good. Now I will be left with a negative 8b. Negative 8b, and that is greater than 0 minus 5 will leave me with a negative 5. So if you notice what I have here, I have a negative 8b is greater than negative 5. So since I have to divide through by negative 8 now, so here I'm going to divide through by negative 8, and I'm going to divide that side also by negative 8. So I have negative 8, negative 8 will cancel out, so I'm left with a positive b, but I divided through by a negative number, so I have to now switch my sign to less than, and I know that a negative divided by a negative will leave me with a positive 5 over 8. Okay, and those are my answers. Okay, so that's my answer also, and that's my answer also. Okay, I am not sure if I had stated it much earlier, but I'm going to say it now anyway, that when working with inequalities, this answer could be written another way. Whenever you get your solution set, it doesn't matter whether negative inequalities or your regular inequalities that we have been working with so far, the answers can be written in two different ways. Okay, this is one way of writing the answer. I've also could have written the answer such as n is less than negative 8. Okay, or here, let me pull up this a bit just to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, or for this answer, I could have written it in another way. I'm just turning around the thing. Okay, that's what I'm doing. I could have said, I could write my 5/8 first, 5 over 8, and if you notice, the greater than sign would be here, so I have to put it back there. It's greater than b. Okay, so this is another way of writing this, vice versa. I just want you to get used to that. Likewise, this is another way of writing this. Okay, so this n is less than negative 8 here is the same as negative 8 is greater than n. Okay, and y is less than or equal to negative 15. I also could have written negative 15 is greater than or equal to y. It's just another way of writing it. So I need you to get used to that. So just in case you see it on an exam or anything like that, you're familiar with it. Okay? Good, good. If this video has helped you in any way, you can feel free to leave a comment or feedback, and or if you have any questions rather, you can leave your question and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Bye bye. Oops, let me get rid of that.